Scientists' shocking discovery in Greece changes everything. The 1st century BC might have featured ancient civilizations, but it was actually more advanced than you might think. And the astounding discovery in the depth of the edge of the Aegean Sea off the Greek island of Antikythera proves this by no doubt. What was found deep under the waters? And more importantly, how does the underwater stash affect our perception of that archaic era? Join us as we travel back to the 1st century BCE to explore the findings that shocked scientists. This all started when Captain Dimitrios Kondos and his crew of sponge divers stopped at the Greek island of Antikythera to wait for suitable winds before continuing their sail. And an act of boredom was all it took to find the wreck which contained so many treasures from the Roman era. Elias Statiatis dove 148 feet underwater but suddenly signaled to be brought up to the surface. He then told the team that he had seen a heap of decaying corpses, as well as horses on the sea floor. However, he was not really taken seriously, and they actually assumed that he must have gotten drunk from the nitrogen in his breathing mix. Well, considering the depth Statiatis dived before encountering the stash underwater, it would be strange to place the assumption past him. At a depth higher than 100 feet, he was easily susceptible to nitrogen narcosis. Kondos had to confirm what Statiatis had seen, so he donned his gear and went down to the location. Upon his return back to the surface, he came up with the arm of a bronze statue. It turned out that the wreckage of a Roman-era merchant ship actually lay beneath them, but this wreck wasn't fully explored till the end of the season. The Athenian authorities were later informed, and multiple artifacts were salvaged from the wreck. About 300 artifacts were brought to the surface, such as bronze and silver coins, bronze statuettes, ceramic jars, pieces of bronze and marble sculptures, multiple pieces of gold jewelry, 4 hull planks, and even remains of passengers and crew that must have been aboard the ship. However, one artifact was by far intriguing and astounding to scientists. The artifact later became known as the Antikythera mechanism. Unfortunately, upon the discovery of this device, scientists failed to realize its importance until some 70 years later. Interestingly, the device was overlooked for about 2 years after it was fished to the surface. This overlook wasn't beneficial to the structure of the device because it succumbed to deformational changes due to the lack of treatment. The workers at the National Museum of Archaeology in Athens had obviously paid more attention to other salvaged treasures that seemed more important, like the statues. Did we mention the statues? The Antikythera wreck contained quite a lot of stuff, ranging from wine jars to jewelry to anchors, and even the skeleton of an actual person. We can tell from the recovery of several orphan pieces, that is, pieces that have separated from the original statue. Amongst these pieces, divers found marble feet on a plinth, a small part of a statue's robe, hopefully the statue itself is still clothed, and an arm with fingers missing. From this alone, it was inferred that no less than 7 whole statues were buried deep within the waves. The implications of this were clear to historians, just as it is to us now. We don't have that many statues that survived from that period, and the discovery of 7 new pieces is absolutely groundbreaking, a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. Another thing that makes this development so amazing is the fact that the statues we have from that period are hard to study because they've undergone centuries of maltreatment under different conservators. It is a thing of joy that we found statues that haven't been messed up by these factors. Another statue find worthy of note is the large-sized marble head of a male figure that was recovered. Many think it is one of Hercules, but then it's only conjectured at this point. It's bigger than life-size and is thought to be the head of the headless statue found in 1900. It must have felt like a jackpot to divers when they first saw it. Valerios Deus had only paid the mechanism attention because it had a gear on it, and he assumed that it was some sort of astronomical clock at that time, but much thought wasn't given to the device till Derek J. de Sola Price in 1951. Then some 20 years later, Pry and Charalampos Karakalos made gamma rays and X-ray images of the 82 fragments of the salvaged mechanism. These images provided further light on the device, and Price was able to publish a 70-page paper 3 years later. Despite his extensive research and work on the mechanism, he still failed to figure out exactly how the device worked. So, what is the Antikythera mechanism? And what's so remarkable about the artifact? It turned out that the Antikythera mechanism is actually the earliest known analog computer, making it far ahead of its time. Scientists were not expecting an analog computer to date as far back as the 1st century BCE. It was so technologically advanced that nothing came close to or surpassed it about 1,500 years. If that is not astounding, I don't know what is. So, what did it do? The device tracked the predicted eclipses, lunar calendar, and also charted not just the position of the moon, but its phases as well. It was mainly used in spatial tracking and even went as far as being able to track seasons and the legendary Olympic Games. The calendar of the device was devised on the time from one full moon to the next one. The mechanism also contained a speed dial which allowed the user to envisage seasons, making this the ultimate tool for agriculture, which was very predominant back then. It was even speculated that a missing portion of the mechanism might have been used to calculate the positions of the 5 classical planets that were known to humanity then. And these were Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, since they were visible to the naked eye then and didn't require sophisticated tech to discover. The cycle of eclipses had been figured out by the Babylonians at the time of the invention of the device, so 2 dials were added to the mechanism to indicate both the lunar and solar eclipses. However, the coolest feature of this mechanism was that it could perform lunar calculations. That is, it could assume the period of the moon at any given time and subsequently model its elliptical orbit. Given the Greeks' belief in the intertwinement of characteristics of an eclipse and omens, the mechanism might have told fortunes. Well, sorta. Alex Jones, a classicist at the Institute for the Study of the Ancient World in New York, and his colleagues used CT scans to reveal new sections of the mechanism and believed it might have actually contained some 20,000 characters in reference to eclipses' size, color, and associated winds. And these characteristics are in turn heavily intertwined with good and bad omens. The mechanism might be tough to figure out since we only possess limited fragments of the whole device, but when it was whole, it must have been a treat to use since it came with a built-in instruction manual. Kinda reminds you of the manual that comes along with your devices today. However, unlike them, this mechanism's manual doesn't exactly tell you how to use it, but provides labels for any user. So basically the inscription, which is in Koine Greek, highlights the dials, cycles, and even some of the functions of the mechanism. Various models have been created to bring the Antikythera mechanism back to life, but it is still uncertain if any of them have come close to being similar or the same as the original mechanism, albeit going a long way in showing how it might have worked or looked then. Long before the invention of digital computers, analog computers existed, and they might not be as efficient as their successors. They actually did a good job then and formed the highest form of technology for some civilizations and eras. And it seemed the Antikythera mechanism is the first analog computer ever. Quite an impressive feat for the Roman era. However, who must have invented such a technological advanced device in that ancient era? And why was it being transported at the time of the shipwreck? The answer to these questions are still unknown, and though speculations exist, there's nothing solid. But do you know what we can be sure of? Leaving a like and subscribing before moving on to the next video on your screen.